5 cats and 3 dogs or something.
I don't even know how they'd make that work, but yeah. I've never been a person that, like, I'm all for animals and stuff, but there's a line with me, you know what I mean? 2 is pretty good for me. I don't think I'd go above 3.
Yeah.
And I definitely probably would eschew, like, getting 2 of the same kind of animal.
Yeah.
Like, I get a dog, a cat, and a lizard or some shit, you know what I mean? And that's it. A dog, a cat, and an aquarium. That's it. Some people just inundate themselves with animals. I just can't do that, man. I pay too much attention to each animal. I don't have time. Good morning, everybody. I dreamed that I was a sperm last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we were talking about, like, the slow and steady wins the race principle when it comes to sperm. Apparently, like, the fast sperm, they have a certain reserve of energy, and so they, like, and then they're all fighting to get into position and shit. And by the time the slower sperm get there, that took their time, they've got a bunch of energy left. So they can get in that egg while the other ones are like, And so last night, I dreamed I was a sperm.
Yeah, that Freddy movie probably helped.
Was there a sperm in that?
No, but there was the birth canal, remember?
Oh, yeah, the birth canal, yeah. Yeah, and
the colon birth canal.
Nightmare 6.
The Dream Child. Looked up how vaginas look.
Yeah, the inside of that vagina, it was definitely looked spooky in there, but, you know, I don't think that's really what a vagina looks like in there. It did look more like an asshole. It looked like a colon. But yeah, I dreamed I was a sperm.
Yeah.
It was very strange. I wonder if it's like a flashback to when I was actually a sperm. Isn't it also that male sperm are faster, but female sperm survive longer? Some people try to... Yeah, there's definitely like some... I don't know if that's exactly true, but there's definitely some differences between sperm that are carrying... like the 2X,
but they don't carry the 2X.
Or
they only carry an X or a Y.
Right, okay, right. That's what I mean.
Yeah. So there really isn't no like, yeah.
I have heard that there are differences between the X and the Y sperm, and the way that they behave and shit, and there might be certain things you can do to try and, but ultimately it's, you know,
it's a crapshoot.
It is a literal crapshoot.
Some women just have girls, some women just have boys.
Yeah. They say that has more to do with the man than the woman.
Yeah.
Like, some men produce, like, a really, like, higher abundance of Y sperm, and some produce a higher abundance of X. And so that's why you see, like, people that have lots of, well, like my sister and brother-in-law, I just got little girl, little girl, little girl, little girl, one little boy, little girl, little girl. You know what I mean? So.
And also, like, I think the theory on, like, gayness was, like, the more boys you have, the more likely, like, the second or third boy is going to be gay.
I don't even think that's a theory now. Yeah. I think that they've actually done tests on this. And because, okay, this is how it was explained to me. And it's probably, like, very simplistic. But I think it's generally right. Okay, so obviously a mother's biologically female, right? She has a male presence inside of her body when she has a male baby, and there are male specific hormones and stuff that have to be. And so what I've heard is that it's not like
an immune response.
It kind of, but it's not like that. It's just that the mother's body becomes better at regulating that hormonal flux that happens when you've got like you've got male energy or whatever, you got male hormones taking place in you, and as it goes on, the chances that a boy is going to be more effeminate, and thus the chances that a boy is going to be gay gets higher the more boys they have. And I'm pretty sure that that's been tested and kind of like followed through on. I may be wrong though.
Because I remember like a YouTube animation from like 10 years ago trying to explain that.
Yep. My mother-in-law managed to get 2 daughters and a whole multi-generational row of boys using said method. What method?
Yeah, we didn't explain a method.
Somebody did, but I can't find it. Whatever. Somebody's getting their trees trimmed.
They have a hot pink tree shredder or wood chipper.
Oh, that's pretty dope. I like it. I like it. Let me just tell you. I enjoy that.
So cracks me up. The fucking water delivery people gave us a Christmas present that just happened to be exactly what we needed.
Oh, yeah. A keychain. We needed a new keychain. They gave us one. It was nice.
Get Chili Willy, my boy.
Chili Billy. Chili Billy gumdrops. You guys awake this morning? Hello? Are you guys alive in there? I know I've been neglecting you this morning. Kind of caught up in the middle of a conversation, but you know, I'm looking. I'm here. You see? What strain? This morning, I believe this strain is called Runts. After one of the, like after a candy. It doesn't taste much like candy. You're plumb tired? Oh, no.
Look at the hummingbird.
Got a Hummer?
He's going way over there now.
They don't stand still for long, usually. Runts with a Z. I'm out of the strain game, I'll be honest with you. Like, really what I do is when I get a strain, I look at it and I go, okay, is this indica dominant, sativa dominant, or just like a 50-50 hybrid? That's really all I want to know. I know Runts is a hybrid, so it's pretty good smoke for me. Hot pink wood chipper, man. Make a good movie set piece.
Yeah. For a horror movie or whatever.
Yeah. Like a revenge movie. Like a woman had a horrible abusive husband and she escapes him, and then at the end she stuffs him in that fucking thing for revenge. I love wood chippers in movies. There's a few movies that have got them. Isn't there one in Fargo?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Somebody loaded up a wood chipper. They find all the bone flakes or something. I think there's one in Fargo. I'm trying to think of other movies that got a wood chipper in them. I know I've seen at least 5 or 6 movies that have a wood chipper set piece.
Is it the one where like the machines are like sentient and the cars?
Oh, Maximum Overdrive. Is there a wood chipper in that? I don't remember. Man, that's a cool movie though.
Mm-hmm.
Goofy is all fucking get out, but just like really entertaining all the way through the end. Ending is a little lame, but most movies' endings are a little lame. I feel like we've done a pretty good job getting pretty deep on this like Nightmare on Elm Street franchise.
Yeah.
We're 6 in.
Or 5.
Or was 5 the dream
Yeah.
child? Okay. That's still pretty damn good.
I think the 6 is Freddy versus Jason, if I remember correctly.
Is it? I think it's Freddy's dead.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong though. And then there's Wes Craven's New Nightmare that we've got to find, which is like a fourth wall breaking movie, if I remember correctly. It's like, I think Wes Craven is in it, and he's like writing the script or whatever, and Freddy comes out and starts harassing the people that are trying to make the movie, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong about that. It's been a long time since I watched these. But they're definitely getting less watchable with each one.
Yeah.
Each one is about half as watchable as the one before. First one, brilliant. Second one, gay as fuck, so fun to watch.
I feel like 2 is a separate category. It doesn't have the continuity like the other ones do.
That's true. It does step, and it's strange because it steps out of the continuity early. Usually you see movies like that don't have like character continuity or story continuity later in the franchise as they're running out of ideas. The second Freddy movie, it just basically rewrites Freddy as a character, and then he rewrites him again for the third one. Third one has probably the like most fun kills, I would say. Maybe, I don't know. The first one had a lot of really cool kills as well.
But I think they still kept it like decently simple in 3. Because 4 was just fucking insane. With like, and 5. Or it was just a little too extra.
Yeah. It's starting to get way goofy.
Yeah, wasn't 4 where they had like the invisible Freddy?
4 is the Dream Master. So that one was the one where I'm trying to remember. It all kind of blends together. Second one is the gay one. Third one is the one where they're all in a mental asylum together. Fourth is the Dream Master. What happened in the fucking fourth one? See, this is what I'm talking about.
Just less watchable.
It just wasn't great. It was just like very forgettable.
Well, 3 had a lot of continuity. Like they were in the high school, and then like the black dude that survived 3 came back in 4.
That's right. He was back and forth.
But they recast someone, I think.
They recast Patricia Arquette.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't get her.
Yeah, the Dream Master is, like where she transfers her power to bring people into her dreams to someone else.
But they were doing that in the third one, too. Remember, in the third one, she could bring them into her dreams. Mm-hmm. So maybe they just kept... I don't know. Fucking... I'll have to look at a plot synopsis, and we watched the movie 2 days ago. Yeah. It's the sad part about it. It's very forgettable. Main guy in 2 has such a weird face to me that I can never get into it. I mean, I don't know. I didn't notice any weirdness of it to his face. Just 2 does not feel like a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. It's very... It almost feels like a gay porn that just never kicks off.
Yeah, like maybe they took a gay porn script and just made it a Freddy movie.
Maybe. It really does feel like that. It feels like a gay porn script with all the butt fucking removed from it.
Yeah. And horror added.
Like all the setups for what would have turned into a 69 job or a butt fucking, and then they just don't you know, and that instead of a butt fucking, Freddy comes out and chases somebody. You know what I mean? It was very strange.
I went through a shit ton of rewrites too.
Yeah. I would prefer the opposite. I mean, I think a lot of people would, you know. They need to make a version of that really takes off. A version that really takes off. What?
Oh, like a full-on Freddy gay porno.
Oh,
I'm sure that's happened.
I'm sure there is. Like Nightmare on Twink Street or whatever the fuck. I'm sure it's out there. I guarantee you they've got like porns of all the other slashers. It would be shocking to me if they didn't have a dream porn, you know? If they don't, I'll make one. Yeah. We need a Nightmare on Twink Street.
Yeah, go get Jason.
Yeah, Jason can consult and or star if he wants to, but he can consult so we make sure we're getting actual twink culture fully represented.
Keep talking about wanting to make a movie, but maybe a porno is the way to start, man.
Yeah. Maybe you got to get into it starting with porn.
Make the best porn movie ever.
Yeah, dude. The crowd pleaser. A wet dream on Elm Street. It's real. Okay, well, there you go. Wasn't that one of Freddy's lines? How's that for a wet dream?
Oh yeah, because he got trapped in the bed. Yeah.
Talk about a wet dream. Like Freddy is just like in this last one especially, he was nothing. He was reduced to just like a one-liner factory.
Yeah.
Which is kind of sad because you kind of want like in the beginning, Freddy was just like way more menacing and shit. He had that sick sense of humor, but like he was just really, you know.
Not every single one of his lines was a pun.
Right. He wasn't like telling dad jokes every time, you know what I mean?
And he had less lines too.
Right. So it made him more ominous. They shot him in a lot of darkness too, so you could just see the insinuation of his makeup, but not really like. And now they're starting to show him in full light.
Yeah.
And it looks pretty goofy. I really feel like they did themselves a disservice. Excuse me. By making Freddy like killed at the end of every one of these. Like they got themselves in a trap where it's like there's something they have to do in the real world to disempower Freddy or to trap him or whatever the fuck, and that's just become like, I don't know, that trope is lame.
Oh yeah, 4 is when the dog pisses on him. And
that's right. Yeah, the dog pisses fire on his grave, and then he rises from the grave as like a big claymation skeleton with a claw. Yeah, you're right. That is the one where the dog pisses on his grave. I'm just trying to remember what like the trick was, you know, like, so I know in 3 she could pull people in. Maybe she was doing that in 4 as well. Oh yeah, she was.
Yeah, it transferred.
Yeah, remember she was still friends with those other guys, but she was dating some jock, and he was like, "Those guys are weird." The two people that survived was the mute kid, or the one that was mute in Dream Warriors.
Broke his muteness.
Yeah. And then the black kid that just becomes stronger in his dream.
Yeah. Oh, and then remember in 4 there was that nerdy black chick too?
Was that in 4?
Yeah, because 3 was all asylum shit.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, the nerdy black chick. Yeah. And she makes like that thing that ends up getting used at the end on him. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, the trick to kill Freddy in 4 was like she has a little bit of all her friends.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, yeah, got it. Sad days. Sad days for Freddy Krueger. Same with Alien Covenant. They showed the alien in broad light and it looked much lamer. Well, yeah, I mean that was the whole kind of like way. It was the trick they used in Alien 2 because like in Aliens and the first Alien, if you saw the creature, it was a dude in a rubber suit. You know what I mean? And so to get around that and to make them look more ominous, they had these guys like crawl around and they shot them in a lot of darkness with they actually painted highlights on their heads. So if you look at the aliens that they used in those movies in actual light, they look very strange because they're painted so that they picked up a certain type of light and reflected it so that they looked shiny and it kind of obscured the seams in their shit.
Yeah, just so you can kind of track them in the shot.
Yeah.
They were so dark.
So that ended up like, I just love that shit. And the farther we go on in the series, the more well lit Freddy becomes, and the goofier he kind of becomes as well.
There was literally no tension in 5.
5 was just, I don't even know what they were doing with 5. At my new job, and I love it. Well, good for you. Congrats. You think they did Myers justice with the new reboots? I actually haven't seen them. I'm not a big fan of slasher movies. Like, Freddy was my slasher, and I liked him because he had a personality. Say what you want about him, and the movies are starting to really suck now, but, like, at least it's not just a silent dude running around with a machete. I really have a hard time getting into Jason as an antagonist because he doesn't really have any swagger at all. He's just a big dude that walks after you at a medium pace until you get tired and then corners you, and he can pseudo teleport because he'll be in front of you and then 10 seconds later he comes from behind you or whatever the fuck. But in terms of just like how he presents, like personality wise, there's nothing there. And that's kind of the point of him. It's kind of the point of both he and Michael Myers. Michael Myers is credited in the first Halloween movie as the Shape. So he's not, like they really wanted to deconstruct the horror movie and remove any kind of like, I don't know, any kind of like personality that these people would have had and just create these like avatars of fear that just chase you around with a knife. And that shit gets old to me after the first movie. Like, it's like, I can't do 2 movies, 3 movies, 6 movies of a dude in a hockey mask running around. You know what I mean? Freddy to me is like the most accessible slasher because he talks. I like Leprechaun as well for the same reason. It's like a slasher movie that gives the slasher a little bit of personality and some quirks and shit.
Leprechaun 2 was just fucking weird, though.
Oh, yeah. It was ass. I mean, it had its moments, I guess.
Yeah, but it was more watchable than 5 was, I'll tell you that. Or Elm Street 5.
Child's Play. I liked the original Child's Play movie. As they went on, it wore a little thin to me, especially since they introduced in the later movies this idea that Charles Lee Ray doesn't have to inhabit the doll. Like, so, the whole idea of Chucky is that his soul is stuck in this doll and he's trying to fucking groom another body and transfer himself into another body and shit. But once we find out that he can do that, and in fact he does that in certain of the later movies, it's just like, well, why is Chucky even here anymore? Like, why would he even go into a doll? anymore if he can just go into a person. So, and I haven't seen the Chucky reboot with the like Robo Chucky and shit. I haven't seen that shit yet. So.
Mr. Hummingbird, there's no flowers on that thing. It's a dead bush.
He's looking anyway. Was Jason Voorhees human, just a kid who drowned? I mean, kinda, yeah. He was like a kid who was abused by his crazy mother who drowned in Camp Crystal Lake, And then now he was like drowned by the kids because he was deformed, I think. Like the kids picked on him and shit, and he was drowned by them. Something, I don't know. He's got some kind of tragic backstory, but the point is that backstory really very rarely plays out in the film. He's just kind of a big muscly dude in a mechanic's jumpsuit with a hockey mask on, and the bastard son of 100 maniacs. That is a really good line. Yeah, I mean, all of us are technically bastard sons of 1,000 maniacs for sure. Everybody's got a maniac in their family tree for sure. That's kind of crazy if you think about it, man. If you go back far enough, you trace your line, your direct line far enough, you're gonna run into some crazy fucks, some murderers, some thieves. Prefer the It came from a universe, alternate dimension type villains. I tend to prefer like supernatural horror films as well. Like you could say Freddy's a supernatural horror film, but I tend to like like the monsters, the aliens, the demons, those sorts of things in horror films rather than just a dude chasing people around. technically it could happen. We know so little about the universe. Dude, I was reading this thing, I don't know how true it is, that scientists have apparently found these huge voids with tons of water in them below the Earth's crust, so like even below the oceans as we know them. They found like this, like these huge pockets of water, and some scientists theorize that there's more water in these pockets of water than exists in all of our oceans right now. So like there's this huge unexplored liquid biome in the crust of the Earth that nobody ever knew about, that's been sealed off forever. Think about that shit. Let that bake your noodle. Because we all know what happens when like a biome is closed off, you know what I mean? Like animals tend to become extremophiles, and they tend to, you know, just like follow a different evolutionary track. Like the best example of this on planet Earth is Australia, right? Australia was so cut off from the rest of the landmass for so long that the animals on it developed into marsupials. So there's, you know, animals that are unique to that chain of islands because they didn't have the same selective pressures. There wasn't inbreeding in the kind of populations of like animals and shit. The animals that were there were functionally like in their own little gene pool, and so they developed some very different adaptations. There may be some really strange creatures down there, but I'm willing to bet they're still crabs, probably. Hey, I'm the one that you wanted. Hey, I'm the super beast. Crabs are just efficient, yeah. I'm sure there's probably, but like, think about it though. I don't know. Like, if that's true, let's just say that what they theorize is true, and that there is this huge underwater biome under the crust of the Earth, obviously warmer due to its proximity to the center of the Earth, its closer proximity. So there's going to be some natural geothermal warming of the waters. And these huge underground seas have been effectively locked away forever in their own sealed environment that's vast, possibly more vast than our oceans are on the surface. So look at the diversity of life that developed in our surface oceans, and then kind of extrapolate an alien world where selective pressures were obviously very different, where light is completely and utterly non-existent, except for the possibility of extreme bioluminescence. We've seen deep sea creatures that have extreme forms of bioluminescent ability. So what if those pockets are filled with bioluminescent algae and bioluminescent sea plants and bioluminescent animals? What if, because of the sealed off nature of these, that, you know, things just kept getting bigger? Like the pressures that hold back size on the surface planet, when you're in a sealed ecosystem where nothing ever functionally changes, where there's no outside pressure, no invasive species. Think about that shit. Things could be huge down there. Huge. Life is scarce in dark places. Right. But what these scientists are theorizing is because these pockets of water are so deep in the Earth's crust that there's going to be significant geothermal heat, which is energy. They've found on the ocean floor, in some of the deepest parts of the ocean, these hugely diverse biomes that they never knew existed until like the late 90s, early 2000s, where there's tons of little shrimp and algae and fucking albino crabs live right on these heat vents in extreme temperatures. Think about how much of that would reach, how much more of that would reach a deeper pocket of ocean. Like ocean that's closer, to the mantle. You would have a huge amount of geothermal energy bubbling into these places. Plenty-o energy, in my mind, for an entire fucking ecosystem to develop around it. Yeah, I know. That's what geothermal vents, that's what these little vents are. They're like smaller versions of what I would imagine would exist in these underground seas. These underground seas might have mountains that dwarf the size of Everest under them, that are essentially just giant geothermal vents that have been consistently erupting superheated water and gases. Gases, by the way, rich in the type of, shit that it takes the bottom of a food chain to feed on, by the way. I was reading, I can't remember where I read this article, but they were theorizing that there might be these ginormous mountains at the bottom of these underseas that are just eternally erupting geothermal vents. I might be wrong, but I think many of the deep sea food sources come from particles originating from more shallow areas where the light reaches. You're right. It's called marine snow. So on our planet, what we found in our, quite frankly, pretty piss poor exploration of the bottoms of our oceans is we found this. Life gets less dense the farther down you go, because you're getting farther and farther away from the energy source that we know drives life, which is the heat and radiation from the sun. So you go down, into the ocean, the top layer, gets plenty of sun energy, and that's where most of the life in the seas is concentrated, in that top layer. Then you've got like a twilight area where very little sunlight reaches and life becomes more specialized and more scarce. And then at the very bottom, you have what's called the abyssal plane, which is so deep that absolutely not a single photon of sunlight can penetrate that deep. They get no energy from the sun. And a lot of the creatures that live there are reliant on what's called marine snow, which is the shit that drifts down from all of the eating and dying and whatnot that happens on that top layer. So the whales and shit, when a whale dies, right, its carcass might be gnawed on by sharks as it's falling, but once those sharks get to a depth they can't go to, the rest of that carcass just kind of falls to the bottom of the floor. And there's a ton of specialized creatures that exist on the abyssal plane whose entire life cycle involves just seeking, worming around on the fucking, scuttling around on the bottom of the fucking thing and looking for these types of carcasses, and or feeding on the little microparticles of flesh and biological material, that marine snow that just drifts down naturally as a part of the life cycle of the oceans. And that supports the smaller life, and then there's highly specialized larger predatory life that preys on those little shrimps and little krill and whatnot that eat the marine snow, right? But one of the things, like I said, that they discovered, there's actually a couple of things that they discovered, like in the late 90s, early 2000s, the 2010s. There are these huge zones of the abyssal plain that are absolutely rich with life because of geothermal activity and these methane lakes. So at the very bottom of the abyssal plain, sometimes there's a collection of methane, which is heavier than water in its liquid form or whatever. There's these liquid methane lakes that create this completely different biome underneath them. So there are certain little microorganisms and shit that just absolutely flourish in methane. And it's filled with them. It's like a little lake within the ocean that's filled with all of this plant life. And there's tons of animals that live around these methane lakes that feed on those things. Then they found the aforementioned geothermal vents at the bottom of the ocean, which had these hugely rich and diverse types of sea life living on and around them. Specialized coral, specialized crabs, specialized shrimp, specialized bacteria and microorganisms and krill. All of them existing in these tiny little biomes. So where there's heat, where there's energy, there's a way. And if it's true, and I'm not saying that I know for a fact that it is, but if it's true that there are these huge underground seas that rival the size of our surface seas, that have been basically hermetically sealed away since the beginning of time, that they are probably filled with life, and that life is probably absolutely alien in comparison to what we have on the planet now. Teeming with life. I would imagine that if those seas are as warm as they say they are in a lot of the zones and shit, and they have so much of these giant vents from the fucking mantle, there would be just an absolutely teeming with life. Not like, oh yeah, there's this crazy crab that lives down here. Oh yeah, there's a specialized algae. There's going to be that and a whole fucking ecosystem. It's going to be so fucking dense with life. The only stuff going into these underground seas is geothermal gas, and surely it's extremely acidic. Dude, I'm telling you, that they thought that these geothermal vents would be dead zones on the floor. When they were able to send a little unmanned submersible down to the abyssal plain, I think they found these at the bottom of the Marianas Trench, which is one of the deepest parts of the ocean. They sent a little unmanned submersible down there, and they expected to find these geothermal vents, but they thought due to the caustic nature of the gases and the extreme high temperatures that were coming out of these vents, that it would be a dead zone. Like that these areas would be like functionally free of life because nothing could really exist. And they found the exact opposite. The geothermal vents, you literally couldn't see them because they were so covered in albino crabs. Crabs that had developed the ability to exist in like 600, 700 degree Celsius gas and superheated water vents. Think about that. So they were completely wrong about that assumption, that the caustic nature and the superheat from all these gases and stuff would be really antithetical to life. They were completely wrong. They actually found that life found a way. And in fact, found a way boisterously. Tons of life. So extrapolate that out to these seas that are underground, which are going to have even more of that caustic gas. But you got to think about that. Those gases and minerals and compounds and shit, there are microorganisms that feed on that shit. And if there's microorganisms, there's going to be macroorganisms that feed on the microorganisms. And there's going to be macroorganisms that feed on those small, you know what I mean? You're talking about a food chain. And these would have been creatures that were completely cut off from any of the evolutionary cycles and pressures and interbreeding and species combination that happens in, surface evolution. They would have had their own evolutionary cycle, their own interbreeding, their own selective pressures. They're going to be fucking aliens down there. Literal creatures that could not survive on the surface, and we couldn't survive in theirs, and we functionally may as well be on another planet from them. Who knows? Think about this. There could be fucking intelligent life down there. Why the fuck not? We're not talking about outside of Earth. We're talking about on Earth, Jason. I know you're just joining and you want to jump in with a correction already, but maybe follow along. Maybe follow the conversation, Jason. I'm just saying. Talking to a moron in the chat where you're breaking the rules. What do we call that over here? We call that a side conversation. Yeah. Anyway, I gotta go.